What is the weirdest thing you have seen at a friend's house? I thought that it was awesome. There was no furniture at my best friend's house in middle school, just mattresses on the floor and one dining room table chairs, nothing else. In the 1980s a toy called a disc gun was popular, which would shoot out a spinning piece of plastic about the size of a nickel. No furniture or really much of anything in the apartment meant we could not lose the discs. In reality it was that my friend's mom had been killed in an accidental shooting and his father was so depressed he had trouble caring for the family. They moved regularly and had no furniture. A pancake on the stairs. No plate, just a bare pancake. When I asked why there was a pancake on the stair, my friend responded, because I did not want to eat it, as if that explained anything. I went to visit this friend for the first time and she gave me a house tour. I remember there was a hallway with two standard-sized doors, her and her sister's room respectively, and a purple mini door at the end of the hallway. It reached just about my mid-thigh. She didn't open the door, just told me it was her parents' bedroom. But later I saw her parents in the living room and they were regular-sized people. Until this day I ask myself how and why. I went to a friend of a friend's house in 9th grade and she had a beautiful home, super nice furniture and tons of snacks in sparkly containers. We were only staying for a few minutes and she was super nervous that her parents should find out, so we left quickly. She told us that she wasn't allowed to touch anything in the home without asking. She couldn't make a meal, turn the TV on, sit on the couch, get a drink without asking. So she said she sat in her room and read until her parents got home. If she got hungry, she would have to call her mom at work for permission to use the sink, microwave and dishes. At the time I don't know how I classified this info, and not wanting to be a jerk, I shrugged it off and never mentioned it again. It was super weird. She was a good kid and I am not sure why her parents treated her like that. I wonder what happened to her. This was back in the 90s. In case that matters, a family friend's dog had died. I ended up going over a few days later to play basketball, and the dog was laying in its usual spot, in a small bed near the TV in the living room. I said, "Oh, I thought Spot passed," and he said he did. They left the ducking dead dog just laying there. Turns out they were gonna bury it that weekend, when sister could come home from college. But in the meantime they just left it laying there. WTF. It was an emaciated old chihuahua, so it is not like it was a gassy, swollen, stinking mess, more like a tiny little dog mummy, all dried out and shit. But still, who ducking does that? I saw my friend's huge dildo in her shower. I commented on it jokingly as I took a shower, and she said, "Don't use it." Her mom had a white room, white carpet, white couch, a piano and a credenza filled with china and figurines. Nobody was allowed to ever go in there because it would dirty the room. Couch was covered in plastic. I think it was just bizarre to me as a 5-year-old to have a room that nobody can go in. Other friends. Unfortunately you see how many people are hoarders. That, or I just somehow made friends with lots of kids of hoarders. An entire bowl filled with cat hair. Her mother was saving it to make dolls. I saw my friend putting a pen in his ass in front of the mirror, casually spitting directly into their carpeting. A series of tunnels, secret passages and hidden rooms. My childhood friend thought it was perfectly normal and couldn't explain why his parents had turned his average-looking home into a maze. For a visitor, finding a bathroom or even the kitchen was frustrating. The owners were amused. So weird. LOL. One day my sister and her friends had gotten home from school early somehow, and they all hid behind our couch to jump out and scare me as I had taken the bus and walked from the stop in my neighborhood to home. I chose that day very hot and humid to walk through the door and immediately take off my pants, exclaiming that I have the worst case of swamp ass right now. Cue them all jumping out laughing their asses off. I did never done it before, never did after. I was in 9th grade and finally gaining self-confidence and figuring myself out. So I just said this is on why all and walked upstairs. They all occasionally mention it to this day. I helped a buddy pull an engine, load it onto his truck, and then move it from his truck into his garage. His garage smelled awful. While moving the engine, I happened to slip and fall, noticing something terrifying in the process. His garage was essentially his basement, on dirt, no concrete or anything. His main sewage pipes were suspended under the house by twine. There was a large hole dug in the ground and one pipe went straight down into the hole, but ended about 3 feet down. I asked him what in the flying heck was going on, and he told me that is how the house was when he bought it. Apparently the house was built long before the city put in sewers, and there was no septic tank either. The previous owner had dug a tunnel under the house leading to a storm drain. How this passed inspection is beyond me. Maybe the inspector assumed there was a septic tank down there or something, but that did explain the big hole around the pipe. Apparently it would get clogged up with toilet paper and they had to dig it out with shovels. At age 12 I went round to the house of a neighborhood boy who I guessed qualified as a friend at the time. He had an S, which interested me as I grew up in a Sega household. "Oh, yeah," he said casually, playing with a Stretch Armstrong. "That thing. My mom stabbed her boyfriend and he collapsed onto it, so it does not work anymore." This was my first exposure to not just the world of adults, but the world of super ducked up adults who stab each other. I just burst into tears. Last time I saw the kid, he was being loaded into the back of a police van, after something bad happened in his home. His mother did not leave the house with him. Not particularly something I have seen, thank God, but something my friend told me. I asked her where the toilet paper was in the bathroom and she said we do not really wipe our butts in this house. Girl, what? Edit, they did not have a bidet. A human skeleton hanging from the rafters in the attic. It belonged to his grandfather who had been a professor of anatomy. Multiple topless photos of mom framed all around the living room. Apparently she did a photo shoot as an anniversary present for dad. I couldn't think of enough excuses to be in the living room. Was hanging out with this girl at her house for the first time. Huge, lovely house that she lived in with a couple roommates. Her one roommate was apparently obsessed with the actress Jennifer Garner, and above the fireplace on the mantel was this really strange Jennifer Garner shrine. Giant, at least 5 foot tall poster of Jennifer above the mantel, and then tons of candles, small pictures, autographs, and trinkets on the mantel itself. I don't think it was anything too weird, but who TF is praying to Jennifer Garner every day? His mom walking around their house just wearing a bra and talking to them casually, until I saw her and she immediately panicked. Their parents loving each other, showing everyday tenderness, a peck on the cheek here and there, fighting and then resolving it like it is no big deal. I was mid-20s when I finally figured out that some people are married because they genuinely like each other. Heck, I was the friend. My father was elderly when I was young. When I was a little kid, he had severe OCD from childhood abuse, and could not touch anything with his bare hands. He drove his car with his knuckles and used Kleenex and baggies to hold things. On the first floor of our house was my parents' bedroom, the downstairs bathroom, and my dad's study, all off the same hall. Each had a regular-sized bedroom trash can, that by noon or so would be completely buried in Kleenex. When it was your week to deal with the trash, I had 2 brothers. We were each born 18 months apart, and rotating chores were dinner dishes, breakfast and lunch dishes, and trash. It was a daily thing to fill up a giant trash bag with Kleenex and baggies. My parents were old and weird, so we never really had friends over until we were 12 or so. I do not think any moms thought we were playdate material as a family, but one summer I made a friend in the neighborhood and we had hang out a lot. First time he went to the bathroom, he said, "Does your dad have some kind of sinus infection or something?" Right then it struck me that A, I did never seen another human being using tissues to hold things, and B, I did never seen anyone's home with piles of Kleenex everywhere, and mom late middle age too kept our house fairly neat and very clean. It really just hit me instantly. My dad's freaking weird. He would take 3-hour showers and leave the bathroom covered in shaving cream, which he used as soap, and the steam would turn all that Kleenex to mush. I remember thinking at some point, he is guilty, he feels guilty of something. Turns out I was right. Sexual abuse in his household, and his dad was ducking evil. My dad could be a sweet, funny man, then suddenly disappear into some haunted distance, just staring into space, or be a violent and mean sob. Awful, the shit that can happen to kids and how long the damage stays. A 6-7 feet tall carved wooden penis in their living room. But I thought it was awesome. They put lights on it every year for Christmas and call it their Yule log. My mate's dad thinking he was subtly surfing porn behind us while we watched TV in his lounge. The stands and ropes usually used at movie theaters and amusement parks. My friend's family used them to direct traffic through carpeted areas so that the rugs would not get wear patterns on them. The mom would move them at regular intervals. A giant pair of pants that were not theirs. Back in the day, my fiancée, now my wife, and I went to the Goodwill once and saw a giant pair of pants for sale. When I say giant, I mean these things were comically large. I am a pretty big guy and I could fit in one leg. You could put 3 people in these pants and button and zip them with no problem. Not only that, but whoever had them before was so large they were busting the crotch out of them. Seeing these pants for sale, we did what any normal person would do and bought them with the intent of having as much fun with them as possible. I do not remember who came up with the idea, but we eventually started taking them to friends' houses. My wife would shove them in a rather large purse she had, and after we had been at that friend's place for a while, she would excuse herself to go to the bathroom. While she was in there, she had pulled the pants out and hide them in the friend's dirty laundry hamper and then come back out without saying anything. Imagine doing your laundry and at one point pulling out a pair of pants that are so big there is nobody you even know that would wear such giant pants. It is one thing to find another person's underwear in your house, but a pair of pants that huge is another thing altogether. Almost every time we had end up getting a phone call asking if we had left pants at their house, though, just because it seems like something we would do. Friend F, may I use the bathroom? Friend M, her partner at the next ad break. Friend F, thank you. I am on board with these relationships. I get it. Nothing I have not seen before. But the golden rule is that you either tell outsiders you are going 24/7 or you act normal when they are around. Nobody wants to be mixed up in your sex games. Edit, I should say. They were deaf kinky, not abusive. They were and presumably still are well known for their escapades in the scene. A bag with a white substance labeled cocaine. They then put it in our food because it was sugar labeled as cocaine. Their dad's, who's in his early 30s, granny porn collection. I went over to a friend's house and he lived in a really bad part of town. Not only was his house really run down with very little furniture, but there were porno mags out in the open on a coffee table. I was like 12 at the time. A butt plug in the dishwasher. A friend from school was the son of a vicar, so their house was provided by the church. There was a downstairs toilet at the end of a hall under the stairs, but you could open the cupboard under the stairs and there was a handy window to view into the toilet, which always seemed very weird. Well, I have a weird life and have had many weird friends, so here you go. When I was 7, my friend's dad's fully erect dick. Edit, accidental exposure. Same age, neighborhood. Not really a friend per se, but a guy that had a home gym. He was always inviting the neighborhood's ladies over for fitness instruction. He would have us kids come over to jump on his trampoline and show us his cool gym that was adorned with suggestive photos of himself as well as women. Always gave us cards to bring home to our mommies, never daddies. An entire basement full of snakes, an entire garage and backyard full of supplies for the apocalypse. When I was 8, my friend's older brother's digital porn collection he kept hidden in his Wolfenstein 3D directory. My friend's mom's giant vibrators that we used to have a hilarious sword fight with. So much porn, just really, like the time this kid showed us photos of his parents and some other guy banging. Shelves and shelves of cassettes of old Coast to Coast with Art Bell shows. A giant tackle box that was filled to the brim with pills in every shape, size, and color. A literal mountain of empty beer cans in the backyard. Friend's dad was a supreme alcoholic and would sit in the same chair every day, drink beer after beer, and tossed the empties out the window immediately behind him. They piled up for years. A paid maid. This does not sound obvious, but for a young child of poverty, seeing a live-in maid was super strange, like something you only see on TV. Every drug you can think of, many years of cat hair buildup that made it look like the furniture was coated in wool. A house just totally ducking ransacked and destroyed, part tornado and part something out of hoarders, ducking birdseed everywhere. They did not own birds, heirlooms. Again, not really obvious, coming from a background of poverty and parents that did not get along with their parents. It seemed strange to me that a lot of families have these things they hand down for generations. My friend's Teen Beat style posters of Elijah Wood and Macaulay Culkin. He was obsessed with The Good Son. I made fun of him for this naturally. My sister's friend's older, I think she was 16. Sisters room decor. Ever see condoms strung across a room like Christmas lights? I have 11-year-old me seriously had a thing for her though. A lot more that I am sure I am not able to immediately recall. Edit. Oh shit, I just remembered another one. A dead, oozing chicken in the driveway, left out for almost a week. They had a small chicken coop and my friend told me that this particular chicken kept attacking his dad when he would go in there, so he got mad, taped it to the garage door, and rammed it with his truck. Yes, there was a big dent in the garage door, so the story at least kind of checks out. Back when I was a senior in high school, I had all of my required credits, so I had early release where I go to leave school a period early. I convinced my best friend to cut her last class and come hang out with me. She wanted to go home to change before we went out, so I drove her home and we walked into her house to her dad jacking in on the family computer to a live webcam girl. This was back when most families had one PC in a neutral area for the whole family. Considering that guy was basically my second dad, it was even worse. We just ran straight up the stairs and shouted, "Hey, we are home early." Could not look him in the eye for years after. I went to HS in the 80s. My friend lived in a nice neighborhood and his parents were typical white-collar suburbanites. There was a bong and a glass jar with about half an ounce of weed on the coffee table. It belonged to his parents. Apparently they smoked together. It was bizarre for a 17-year kid to see. A sex machine. It was about the size of a 10-gallon aquarium. There were 2 stuffed chihuahuas inside on a type of revolving machine. When you put a quarter in, it started up and one chihuahua popped up onto the other and started vigorously drilling it from behind. It was weirdly fascinating. He kept it on top of his refrigerator and rigged the coin slots so it did not need coins to operate, so every single time someone went in to get a beer you had hear it start up. A big black trash bag completely crammed full of vintage adult VHS tapes. One time I slept over at his house. I got to borrow his sister's room to sleep in. Since she was away for the weekend, it was very dark when I went to sleep, so I did not really see anything in there. But when I woke up in the morning, I could see that the room was completely plastered with posters and pictures of Leonardo DiCaprio. Not a single piece of the room was untouched by his presence, and they were all looking at me passionately and seductively. This happened sometime in 1998, so pictures of him in a young girl's room was not surprising at all. But waking up to this as a 10-11-year-old boy was quite a weird experience. Whenever I see a picture or video or hear the name of that guy, I can only think of this room. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe.